Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Eric. Are we on now?
We're on.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone to another episode of our Facebook Live series. We've got Jeff Jenkins and Eric Clayman here, partners at Jenkins and Clayman. And today we're going to be talking about business closures and things that perhaps you should do financially if your business is having a lot of trouble. As you all know, many businesses were shut down because of COVID, some partially, some completely. Some are still partially shut down. And one of the questions that we got was, did we think that businesses could survive another round of shutdowns, lockdowns, whatever you want to call them? And it's bad now, and it would just be worse if that happened. Of course, these shutdowns have caused a severe financial hardship to the business owners. Even getting back to be partially opened. Eric and I were talking about this yesterday. A restaurant, for example, if you're going to have a restaurant, you're going to figure, well, okay, this is how many tables we need, and this is how many seats at each table, and that gives us a seating capacity of X, and we can turn the tables over so many times a meal. We'll figure out what that is. And when you're done with all those calculations, you're not you're not ready to retire after the first day in business. I mean, it's in the food industry, there's not much of a margin for error. And to have the government say, okay, well, you've got to shut down for 4 months or 5 months. And then they say, oh, you can have a quarter of the people there. Well, it's not good. So, Eric, what do you think about all this?
Well, Jeff, first of all, happy Thanksgiving to all of our many listeners as we took last Thursday off.
That's right.
Thanksgiving is typically football.
Typically.
But in our area of practice, we filed Chapter 7 bankruptcy petitions throughout New Jersey, Chapter 13 petitions in the southern two-thirds of New Jersey. All of you football fans out there have had a tough year. We've got the Jets. The Giants were doing better for a little while, and then their quarterback
just got hurt.
Is lame. He's done. They're done. And the Eagles. So Thanksgiving, football, and the economy as a result of COVID all kind of going in the same direction. Jeff and I do prep for these shows, and Jeff just told you a little calculus about restaurant owners who right now in New Jersey, it's 25% capacity. And it's cold today. And you're not going to have a lot of outdoor seating. I don't care how good your heaters are.
No.
And that's a tough way to do business. And we get phone calls. Sure, we have a lot of clients who are on the other side who are tenants to landlords, but we get a lot of calls now from landlords. And we're getting calls about their restaurant tenants. We do not typically represent large banks. We don't represent large banks, large financial institutions. We represent consumers. But included in their consumers are restaurant owners, hair salon owners, gym owners, a lot of people with 1 or 2 locations who are really getting hurt right now. And we can help. If you've reached the point, well, let's back up for a second, Jeff, and let's go back and forth the way we talked about it. First of all, a lot of our clients who call us, they're individuals, but they've started a business as an LLC for tax and other reasons.
Yeah.
But we can still help them, right?
Certainly. Many times, if you open a restaurant, a gym, a small retail store, you might have it incorporated as an LLC or something else. LLC is the easiest thing to do. And so most of the time, that's what's done. And unless you've got tons of money and you don't need any type of loan or anything, you're not worried about signing up a note and a whatever with a lending institution. But lending institutions are not going to loan your business money because it hasn't even started yet. And they're going to make you sign, at least as a guarantor, personally as a guarantor, those two things are basically the same. And so commonly, lenders are going to want certain things as collateral, whatever they can get their hands on. So They might have, if you've got a landlord, probably in your rent, it says if you improve the property at all and you've got fixtures, things that are, like
Say
a
it,
sink,
Jeff.
like
Fixed.
a sink,
Fixed.
fixed, that they become that they belong to the landlord. A bank that loans you money to make improvements in a space you're going to rent may take a security interest in improvements as best they can. They might ask for a security interest in any, we'll call it personal property, but things that can move around like chairs, tables.
You're talking about a restaurant now.
A restaurant or a hair salon,
right.
Probably, the chairs in the hair salon, the sinks would be fixtures, the chairs would be personal property that a lender could very well have a security interest in. They also might file, we call them UCC1s for the Uniform Commercial Code. They do that to perfect a security interest in things. For example, accounts receivable, or other things that the business might have.
And this is good, Jeff. We're going over this because this is what happens. People call and they say, okay, I've opened 2 restaurants under one LLC or 2 separate LLCs. Neither one is working, Eric. I can go work for my uncle, go back in the trades. I've got a union job lined up. I got to get out of this. But everything's in an LLC. Can I get out of this? And Jeff, what do you tell them?
Well,
everything's in LLC, but I guaranteed everything. That's what I should have said. Sorry.
Yeah, almost a lot of times, just to add just a little something to what Eric was just saying, we get a call from somebody that says, I have a business and I want to do a business bankruptcy. Well, if you're going to close the business, if the business has had it and you've got all these bills and you aren't sure what to do, and you come to us, normally we'll advise you to let the business just die, just let it go. And what we would be concerned with would be you personally. Right. We do a bankruptcy for you personally to clear up not only any debt that you might have personally, but also things that you kind of co-signed for the LLC.
Right.
The rent, the tables and chairs. And so we want to talk a little bit about, if it comes to that, what should you do? What's your priority of paying people, or what kind of things should you do if you plan on closing the business with things that are in the premises?
Right. I guess I went right to the point of the business is failing. And look, we're bankruptcy attorneys. That's who calls us. People don't call us to say, my business is great. What should I do with all my money? So we're presuming, if you're listening to us, calling us, there's a problem. And this is what we do. People walk in with with problems, and we try to offer solutions. And most of it, I think we've done about 25, 26 of these episodes. Most of them have been about consumers behind with their mortgage, behind with their rent, behind with their car loan, the IRS money, going through a divorce, things like that. Mm-hmm. What we wanted to do today is talk about a small business owner who is unfortunately having trouble too. And most of it is COVID related. The business could have been successful. So they call, we figure out what type of business they're in. And our aim, if you as the business person has concluded that the business is not going to work, then our aim is to give you a fresh start. Not your business a fresh start, you a fresh start, so you can move on with your life and not owe anybody any more money. There's limits we've talked about as to how many assets you can keep, how much, but the typical small business owner has invested his life, his sweat, and a lot of his credit card debts in his new business. So we want to get out of the business debt. Jeff said the bank loans, so you can buy the pretty tables and chairs, and the landlord lease that has 3 more years to run, and utilities which have run because the pipes burst, and everything bad that can happen. You walk in smiling, and hopefully after you speak to us, you can walk out. You walk in crying and you walk out smiling. Did I reverse that?
Yes, you did.
Oops. You walk in smiling, you walk out even happier.
Yeah.
But Jeff, okay. Let's talk about this. So I am closing my restaurant, but you know what? My bank account has a couple $1,000s in there. Mm-hmm. I don't owe the bank any money. And my employees are all paid. Okay.
Okay.
What should I do with that couple $1,000 if I'm going to have to file bankruptcy personally, but should the LLC still have money in the bank? What should I do?
Well, what you should do is go see a bankruptcy attorney. And it's not that bankruptcy attorneys have a market on talking to people who are struggling in their business. You could see a business attorney as well, and he could give you advice. But the thing, when you come to us, you would come here thinking that I might want to do a bankruptcy, or I have to do something like that. You might be thinking about it for the business, like I mentioned earlier, which we would discourage, because business bankruptcies are rather expensive. In fact, extremely expensive. I mean, we've got a new kind of Chapter 13, but it's
Kind of Chapter 11, yeah.
yeah, it's kind of a mix between the two. And Chapter 11s, of course, are very expensive. So most of the time we end up letting the business die, like I said before, filing either Chapter 13 or a Chapter 7 for the person to get rid of all their liabilities. And if the business has assets, Eric's talking about having money in a bank account, it doesn't mean that you can't keep that money personally. You can, if it's going to be below your exemption. And I would think probably also it would need to be money that's owed to you, which almost certainly it is.
For unpaid wages.
Or yeah, your wages.
Your wages.
Right. Or whatever, money that you put into the business.
So you have a truck that's in the corporate name. And we get these questions all the time. And we have to see if the truck is owned outright. We have to see who's owed what money. And there's an analysis that can be done. And we try to give this kind of good advice so the person does get that fresh start.
Yeah. And generally, if a business, if you're going to close a business and let it die, and you have assets, whatever they are, a truck, like in the case of a hair salon, chairs and things like that, you want to liquidate those things. You want to sell them. And you want to use that money to pay creditors as best you can. Again, you're allowed to keep some of that money yourself if you're owed money from the business up to the amount of your exemptions in your personal bankruptcy. But beyond that, creditors need to be paid. And you would really need to talk to a bankruptcy attorney about that. Who should I pay? Who gets paid first, second? Because there's all kinds of bills that you could have, liabilities, let's put it that way. You could owe taxes to the IRS or the state. You could owe suppliers. You could owe the landlord rent. You could owe back utility payments. You could owe the bank because they loan you money to fix up the place where you started your business. And like I mentioned before, a lot of times some of these creditors will have liens on everything that's in the business. And so it may be that you can sell the chairs, but you've got to give the money to Commerce Bank or something because whatever. TD Bank.
There you go. There is actually a Commerce something or other.
I thought there was.
There is. There's a new entity. But yeah, it's funny. He's always smiling. And that's right. And these are tricky things. And this is why we've tried to emphasize through these episodes that if you're going through financial difficulty, you know that your landlord, your mortgage company, or in the situation of a business, your landlord or the person or entity from whom you borrowed money, Commerce Bank, these people all hire lawyers. They don't throw you out themselves.
And they've got big law firms too.
And they don't sue you. They don't sue you themselves. They hire lawyers. So you should be armed with an attorney as well. And when you call an experienced law firm such as ours, we've lined things up so the people who speak to you are not judgmental. They're not picking on you. They're not judging you for what you've done. We're here to help. And it's a good experience. Remember, whenever you hire a bankruptcy lawyer, make sure they're experienced in bankruptcy law and there's more than one lawyer in the office, just in case something happens. Those two things are very, very important. Small business owners deserve what everyone else can afford to pay for, which is a good attorney to represent them.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So Jeff, do you think they're going to shut things down? What was Governor Murphy's last order? He did the restaurants again, didn't he? A little bit.
Well,
Not
he
as
said,
bad.
I think people can't sit at the bar. And were they allowed to before he changed this with his most
I think so.
recent
Yes.
order?
Yeah.
Well,
And they were certainly allowed there after 10 p.m.
Yeah,
right?
you can't sit at the bar, and our curfew time. I feel like somebody like I'm still in college or something. It became 10 o'clock rather than 11. So these restaurant can't serve any food between 10 o'clock at night and 5 a.m. in the morning. How many times have you been in a restaurant at 4 a.m.
That's my peak
waiting
time.
for your second course?
Yes. Because
So and also, of course, we have if it's going to be indoors, it can only be 25% of the capacity of the
that's what
restaurant.
hurts.
If it's outdoors, you're fine. The tables just have to be a reasonable distance apart. 6 feet is what we use as a guideline.
And the CDC just changed. If you have COVID, you no longer need to be 14 days. It's probably going to be moved to 7 to 10 days.
Yeah.
And that's important for those of you who own a business to know that you have certain responsibilities under New Jersey law and under the CDC. If anyone reports to you that they have COVID, not necessarily that they have it, but they've been in contact with someone who has COVID, it is your responsibility as the employer to tell every employee, each and every employee, and that employee should go home immediately. And that's important. And you should just Google under New Jersey law, under New Jersey COVID restrictions, you should just watch yourself, because we do expect there to be more business owners tuning in today. And that's something that it's changing all the time also.
Of course,
But
if you're not running your business right now, you don't have to worry
yeah,
about things like that. But the CDC did change things to 7 days. And they said they did that because these people that try to trace where the illness came from, somebody's sick, and they say, well, where were you? Trying to figure out who else you may have been in contact with and contact them to see if they might have the disease. And if you're telling people, well, you've got to quarantine yourself for 14 days or 3 weeks or something like that, they're not going to want their friends to be out of work for 21 days or 14 days. That's the main reason they cut back the time that they suggest you quarantine yourself. So that as they're doing this tracing, it's going to be better. They'll get better results because people won't be inclined to say, no, he wasn't near me.
now I saw that one of the best cyclists in the Tour de France just came down with COVID for the second time.
Oh, is that right?
Yes. So that was just reported. So he dropped out, and that's something we really hadn't talked about or thought about. Is kind of hoped that once you get it, you kind of get this invincibility suit, but that may not be true. The next invincibility may be the vaccine, which is coming. I guess, Jeff, we don't qualify because I think the first people to get it are those in the front line, although we consider ourselves essential employees. We may not be considered front line, or those in nursing homes. So then we'll go from there.
Right.
So it's the governor has maintained that New Jersey is still he doesn't call it a disaster area. What does he call it?
The crisis is still going on.
Crisis is still going on as of November 25th.
And that would enable him to make all these decisions about our freedoms that some might think they have by virtue of the Bill of Rights, like the freedom to practice your own religion and have as many people as you want in the church and so forth. But that's where he's getting that authority, I guess.
By calling it a crisis in
Right.
special. So he is supposed to renew it by Christmas or not. And we'll see. There are sheriff sales occurring for commercial real estate throughout New Jersey. There are sheriff sales occurring when the mortgage company certifies that the property is abandoned or in danger, right?
Mhm.
And then there's also sheriff sales occurring on residential mortgages if it's not a Fannie Mae, Ginnie Mae, or other government-backed loan.
If it's not government backed, and that's the mortgages that are not backed by the government are about 30% of the mortgages that exist. The government-backed mortgages constitute about 70%. So we've got 70% of the mortgages in New Jersey with the mortgage company telling their attorneys, you can't do anything, no foreclosure yet. And apparently, when we were talking about this yesterday or whatever, you indicated that after talking with one of our colleagues who ran one of the firms that does foreclosures, he said that even that 30%, a lot of them are telling them to hold up, just don't go forward with a foreclosure. But at some point, that's all going to change. And we're changing our subject right now. We're not talking about
But we're
shell
changing.
business, but we're trying to just we're talking about COVID and problems from COVID, and these are concerns.
And the concern we have for our potential clients and our existing clients, quite frankly, is that it's almost too easy to kind of sit on your hands right now, because you won't get thrown out of your house this week or this month. The governor said that. But if you're not paying your rent or not paying your mortgage, this is something you need to address.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always better to address it sooner rather than later by speaking to an attorney,
Right.
an experienced bankruptcy attorney.
Yeah, we've said that before again and again, and we highly recommend it, that if you get something from your landlord about landlord-tenant court, you get something from the mortgage company's attorneys that looks like it was filed with the court, that you should go see a bankruptcy attorney, because these things are going to come to an end, and the money that the rent that you haven't been paying, the mortgage payments that you haven't made, are all going to come due. And what happens, there are a lot of things or different things can happen with mortgages, but with rent, you're going to need to come up with that money, or else you're going to have to leave the property, basically. And of course, we have utilities that are not being shut off. And when they start shutting things off, they're going to say, "Oh, by the way, you owe us all your utility usage from the middle of March until the end of December," or whatever. These are going to be large amounts of money, and seeing a bankruptcy attorney would certainly be a good idea. Bankruptcy attorneys, we, like our firm, will happily talk to you on the phone and not charge you anything, and give you some advice about what we think you should do.
Good. Well, Jeff, I think this was good. We kind of went a little bit astray, but
Yes.
I think hopefully if the small business people that did tune in understand that closing a business is a serious decision to make. And if you've made that decision, we're here to help you and give you some guidance so it's done correctly so you can get your fresh start and move on.
Right. So with that, let's say goodbye and sign off for today. And stay out of trouble, stay safe, and God bless. And we'll see you next Thursday at 2:00.
2 p.m.
Yep. And then the Army-Navy game is 2 days after that.
Saturday.
Yep.
Very good.